Nozizwe is currently our acting CEO. She is handling the reins very, very well, while Monica, our CEO, is working very hard at setting up our new baby, the CSE. Nozizwe will be in a role for just under a year before we decide on next steps, what happens with the CSE, and then we make a permanent decision in terms of our CEO. And so I'm going to hand over now to Nozizwe to share our housekeeping rules for this virtual meeting.
Good morning, everyone. The housekeeping rules, may we all mute our microphones when we're not speaking. Can we use the raise hand function, chat function, if we need to speak or to share any comments and ask questions? May we kindly switch our videos off during the proceedings, except when we are speaking. The proposer and the seconder to be noted on the chat by raising your hand, and also kindly informed that this meeting will be recorded. I would also like to take this opportunity to request all attendees to actually to share the following hashtag. It's hashtag Cotlands AGM, and as well as like our Cotlands on Facebook. Okay, then we're now going to start. You will all receive a soft copy of the annual report, but we'd like to share our impact page at the beginning of the report, which is now going to be shared on the screen. Okay. We are very proud of the numbers that we have produced this year. And this incredible work would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of our valued team of 116 employees. Together, we reached 105,802 children through our play groups, toy libraries, and projects. We are very proud that we have exponentially grown our toy library membership, and we now have 709 members in our program. Another important aspect of our work is ensuring our children receive nutritional support to assist in the optimal learning of our children. And in this financial year, we have served 185,082 meals. We couldn't have done this without the support of our investors and our project partners. Together, we can achieve the infinite possibilities. I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce our guest speaker, Brent Lindeque, otherwise known as the Good Things Guy. Brent Lindeque is a South African entrepreneur, journalist, motivational speaker, and social media influencer, but he hates that term. He also happens to own South Africa's top good news site, and was one of the fortunate 4 journalists in South Africa who were invited to meet Oprah to have discussion during lunch last year. He has been named one of the top 100 most influential young South Africans by the Mail and Guardian, and was a GQ magazine Man of the Year. And his platform was featured on a list of world's top 100 innovation success stories. We are very excited to have Brent joined our AGM. As an advocate for good stories in South Africa, it links well with what Cotlands is doing on the ground and what we are doing to ignite early learning opportunities for the little South Africans. Irene, our National Business Development Manager, will be hosting our fireside chat with Brent. Irene, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and A warm welcome to Cotlands AGM. It's an exciting time for Cotlands. Lovely that you could join us. This morning, we are excited to share and be hosting a fireside chat, which is something new for Cotlands this year. But we're even more excited to have a renowned personality like Brent Lindeque with us. Brent, I hope that you don't mind the personality term as much as you do the social influencer. He's famously known as the good things guy, and he'll be chatting to us today. I want to encourage those that are attending today's AGM to please pop any questions and comments that you may have into our meeting chat box, and we will certainly circle back to these at the end of our discussion. Good morning, Brent, and thank you for being a part of today's conversation.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. Good morning to you, Irene, and to everybody that is on the AGM. What an absolute honor to be part of this. I know Cotlands hasn't done this before, but to just sit and chat about the good things that are happening in our country, maybe for me to give a little bit of insight to what I see on a daily basis. I've been doing this for 10 years now in the good news space, and so I'm just really honored that you asked me to be here this morning, and hopefully I can leave all of the members with a little bit of insight into what I get to do on a daily basis.
Wonderful. So without further ado, let's kick to it. So reflecting on the past year, Brent, what were some of the most impactful and positive stories on Good Things Guide that stood out personally for you?
You know that we get to tell so many good news stories, and when I first started this beautiful platform that has become South Africa's top good news site, my idea was to share one good news story with South Africa every single day. And let me tell you, 10 years ago, sometimes I couldn't find anything. Sometimes there was no good news to be found on that day, not because there wasn't good news around us, but because the hard news had taken such a big limelight out of the space that it wasn't allowing the good news to really shine. Almost a decade later, and it's now a full team and I that work towards telling good news stories every single day. And we tell up to 15. When we wake up in the morning, our inboxes overflow with incredible good news stories from all different facets of South Africa, whether it's got to do with our environment, whether it's got to do with political, our sports heroes, and human beings, really, at the heart of what those good news stories are. And I think that's some of my favorite stories from not just this year, but from the last decade of doing this. It's the human stories. It's the South Africans that are getting up every single day to make a difference in society, that are doing their part to be active citizens. And sometimes those extraordinary things that they do are really just ordinary changes to help make our country a better place. And those stories also resonate with all of our readers. So it's the human stories that really give me all the feels.
Great, thanks, Brent. I think that's truly inspiring, the human touch and, just being human and having the heart element in, in everything we do cannot be underestimated. Thank you for sharing that, Brent. And so resonating from the interesting anecdotes that you've just shared, Good Things Guy has become quite a beacon of positivity. How do you go about 15 stories a day? Goodness gracious. How do you go about choosing the stories that actually make it to the platform? And more especially in the context of promoting a better and a more hopeful world?
So it is tricky, and we are, I mentioned that it was really difficult 10 years ago to go find stories, but now we're inundated. We get tagged on social media constantly, and when I say we, it's not because I have multiple personality disorder. It's because there's a full team that are now looking after Good Things Guide and writing these good news stories. So we all get tagged all over social media. Our social media inboxes also overflow with either people wanting to tell their story, wanting to tell the story from within their community, or wanting to help each other. And then obviously emails. Our email address is freely available all over the internet. So our email inboxes overflow as well. How do we choose what to put on the platform? We have an editorial process that we try to follow as best as possible. So we try to be as business orientated and impartial when it comes to stories. But I have to be honest with you, sometimes the stories do just creep into your heart, and you think to yourself, I have to report on this. This is important for me. It's important for South Africa. It's an important story that more people need to hear about. So it's a two-pronged approach. The one is trying to be ethical and impartial and choose the right content for the platform. And the other is our heart. We go by what our heart tells us what to do, and then we tell those stories as well.
Great. So speaking about inspiring stories and how you're choosing it, and many of us are familiar with the quote, doing the best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment. Now, few of us, or many of us, may have heard the quote, but very few of us have heard the voice behind those words in person. And you know what I'm talking about, Brent.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. This just blew me over. I have to say, big up to you. So for the rest of us that are listening in, Brent had the opportunity of having lunch with Oprah Winfrey. Wow.
Oh, wow.
And with her link, Brent, that we know of, she's big on education in South Africa, especially. She invests a lot in education. Can you please share with us a key takeaway or piece of advice from her in terms of quality education during your lunch date?
Absolutely. So just to give a bit of context here, when I grew up, I didn't grow up with a hell of a lot of money. My parents did the best that they could to give my brothers and my sister and I the best childhood that we possibly could have had. But when I was coming home from school, my friends and peers would all be watching KTV, and I would go home to SABC3, where I would watch Very Mark adverts, and then from Very Mark it would move on to Oprah, because she was on SABC3 every single day. And I spent a lot of my childhood learning a lot of things from this incredible, what I would call one of the best storytellers in the world. Fast forward to when I started Good Things Guy 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, and how my life had changed. And I went viral on the internet for doing something kind. And I was featured all over international mainstream media platforms. So the CNNs, the BBC, the Sky News, all of that was featuring the story of this average South African doing something really crazy or whatever it was. At that point in my life, one of my highlights was that I got featured in the OMAG, which is Oprah Winfrey's magazine. I was like, I have made it. This is absolutely incredible. This is someone who I've looked up to my whole life. And here I am being featured in her magazine. Fast forward to 2023, and last year I received an email to sit down as one of 4 journalists with Oprah Winfrey to have a candid discussion about her life, about what she believes in, about what legacy she wants to leave. And that all happened at an educational conference. So Oprah put on this education conference here in Johannesburg. There were thousands of delegates who attended, and it was all about her learning about trauma-led education. So dealing with traumas within children so that they can go on to become incredible adults, knowing how to deal with their trauma. She actually launched a book, and it's always a funny point, right? When you see Oprah shows, there's always something under the chair, always. And at that conference, we each got a book that was under our chairs. And the book asked a serious question, and the serious question was, what happened to you? So if you look at someone and they have, I don't know, a challenge in life, they have a way that they are dealing with a situation, their knee-jerk reaction, it's not about what is wrong with them, but rather what happened to you. And she believes from an educational point of view, if we can teach our kids to understand, to have that self-awareness as to why we make those knee-jerk reactions and decisions that we do, that can help us in our adult life as well. So it's an incredibly different way to look at the education sector and how to really be more self-aware. But one of the biggest things that she left with me is at the time when she opened her school here in Vereeniging, the Oprah Winfrey School for Girls, she went back to America, and it was Nelson Mandela that inspired her to open that school. And she went back to America. At the time, that incredible human Maya Angelou was still with us, and she was one of Oprah's best friends. And she asked Maya, she said, is this my legacy? Is this my legacy in life? I've done TV, I've become famous, people know my name, but is this school going to be my legacy that I leave in this world? And Maya said to her, you've got it wrong. Legacy is not one thing. Legacy is absolutely everything. Legacy is every person you speak to, every email that you respond to, every human being that you touch, every choice you make on a daily basis is your legacy. So legacy is not one thing. Legacy is everything. And that's something that stayed with me since that meeting. That and obviously being able to take a selfie with Oprah.
Yeah, I guess all of us want to know, did she really say, you getting a book, you getting a book, everybody's getting a book? And
it felt that way. I don't think those are the words that came out of her mouth, but being in that space, it really did feel that way. And the book is actually right behind me over there. What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey.
Wonderful. That's truly inspirational, Brent. I mean, just to be in the presence of someone who herself is truly inspirational is quite a moment. I'm sure it was. And it's easy to see why education is close to Lady O's heart. So in a world, Brent, that's often saturated with negative news, and you can pick up a publication or read an article, it's more negative than positive. And how do you personally, as the good things guy, maintain a positive mindset and continue to stay motivated, sharing these good news stories?
So I'd say, first of all, I have the best job in the world. And I'm sure you could say the same because you do really good things. My inbox is overflowing so much with good news, and I get to report in these good news stories that I almost get lost in them. And that sort of gives me the upper hand when it comes to positivity, because I'm surrounded by so much good. I'm surrounded by all these really good news stories. But with that said, I don't think there's anybody in the whole world who can be positive and happy every single day. The world can some days feel like a really scary place. And when we open up our sort of newspapers and we look at what's happening around us, we look at the state of education in South Africa, we look at the state of poverty and crime. When we look at these things, it can feel overwhelming, and it can make us incredibly sad. It can really make us feel that way. So I guess with that said, there is a choice that I choose to make on a daily basis. And the first thing is to know what's going on around me. So I'm a balanced journalist. I know exactly what's happening in South Africa. I don't shy away from the hard stuff. And the reason for that is because I believe we need to know what's going on around us in order to fix it. That's the only way we're going to fix things. So we have to have that. The second is to be balanced in what I allow into my space. Be balanced about that news I let in, the people I spend time with, the conversations I have. Try to be balanced in that sense. And the third thing is a trick that I learned a couple of years ago. And I think it's something we all know, but sometimes we forget. And that is that gratitude equals happiness. Gratitude equals positivity. And I don't need to tell everybody on the call now. If I ask you to think of just 3 things that you are grateful for right now, just 3, I can almost imagine, I can't see everybody's faces, but you will start to get a little smile that will come to you, because you'll think of, I don't know, you'll think of your kids. You'll think of perhaps your job if you love it. You'll think of the time that you get to spend with your family. You'll think of the fact that you were able to have a warm cup of coffee this morning. There are things that we can be grateful for right now that can create happiness for us. And when I tell you to think of 3, I almost know, guaranteed, that number will just grow and grow and grow. So that's how I stay happy on the bad days, is I like to think of the things that I'm grateful for. And that list is almost endless. And that keeps me positive, even when I have those not okay days.
Brent, that is truly inspirational. It's so easy sometimes to just get sucked down in something that's negative, but the gratitude aspect, surely that will resonate with the heart, right? And I'm sure most of us are wishing that we could have this pocket-sized good things guy that we could carry around with us just to keep us going on those cloudy days. So yeah, thank you for those words. They're truly, truly inspirational, Brent. So you mentioned earlier about storytelling and how Oprah is a great storyteller as well. And the power of storytelling is very evident even in the success of you, the good things guy. So How do you believe storytelling can influence and inspire positive change in individuals and in communities?
Oh, storytelling is one of our oldest traits as human beings. We've passed down stories from generation to generation. We still tell stories of our great ancestors. I know some people are obsessed with the History Channel. That's a story. That's stories that we're telling of our past. And stories are so incredibly important because they shape our future. So the present that we're living now, the things that we talk about, the stories that we tell really do define where we're going to go. I've found working in this space that the more stories we share that are positive, the more stories we share that are good, they really do influence society. Sometimes we can look at those good news stories, and I know there's cynical people out there that might go, why is that person writing about the fact that they're committing a random act of kindness? And the answer there is because it inspires others. When we see people being better, we choose to be better. And not all of us, there might be the small percentage that don't want to get involved, but the reality is that the majority of human beings are inspired by each other. And by telling these stories, we're able to really create a different future. A couple of years ago, there was, I don't want to call her average because she's not average, but she really is. She's just an average South African who lives across along the Henops River. And almost 5 years ago, she realized how dirty the Henops River is. And her name's Taryn Johnson. And Taryn believes, as a human being, that we should all be able to put a cup in any body of water and drink from it. And that's almost impossible, right? You can't even think that that could be a reality. But this is her belief. And December, almost 5 years ago, she decided to start cleaning up the Henops River herself, just sort of there every Saturday doing her thing. And at first, the community around her thought she was nuts. They were all watching what she was doing, and they thought, this woman is never going to get anything right here. She's one person. It's not going to make a difference. There's no way that she can make a difference. Slowly but surely, she just kept on doing what she was doing. And eventually her community started to get involved. They started to be there helping her clean that river. 4 years later, so the stats have not been released for this year yet, because obviously it's not the end of the year yet. But 4 years later, at the end of December last year, Taryn Johnson and her now newly formed NGO, Henops Revival, celebrated removing 4 million kilograms of trash out of the Henops River. Storytelling is so important, and it was only because her story was shared not just on our platform, but on platforms around the country, that she was able to get the support for people to actually believe in her. And I'm almost sure that any community members who saw her at first and didn't have that trust in what she was doing are now all taking off their hats to one person with a simple idea who was able to shape a whole movement that will definitely change the environment just by doing good and then telling those stories.
Sure. Talk about a feat that became a reality. Sure, that's amazing. Well done. Well done. And, looking at the connection with the community, but also looking more specifically for our conversation on the power of education. Truly, indeed, the pen is mightier than the sword. And what is your view on good things stories where education can transform lives, communities, and to solve for inequality?
I don't want to quote Nelson Mandela because that sometimes can be seen as a little bit cliche when having conversations, but he believed that education was the most powerful tool that we could use to make a difference. And that belief is cemented in reality. When we know better, we do better. And our kids, if they have the opportunities to have better learning environments, if they have better, smaller classes so that they can get more attention paid to those students, if they can get to school being school ready through ECD and different campaigns and courses to really support the children in South Africa. And also that leans into infrastructure, right? So if we have the correct facilities, if we have toilet facilities, hygiene facilities, when we have all these things in the education sector that can enable our kids to learn better, they will be better. and we will have South Africans that move forward into adulthood that will contribute to society, that will continue making a difference, because that's also how it works. When we start to uplift different sectors of society, then those sectors of society will uplift each other. We rise by lifting each other. That's what we say, right? So I think education is the most powerful tool that we can use to not just transform lives, but to transform our entire country. And Bruce Whitfield asked, he had a show, one of his last shows on his last week on 702. And every day he asked a different thought leader, business leader, celebrity to come on the show and speak about what one thing would you change to make South Africa better? What one thing? If you could be president for just an hour and implement some sort of legislation to make this country a better place, what would you do? And the majority of people spoke about education. They spoke about education as a thing that really could transform this country. Me, when I was asked, I guess it fits in with education and maybe ECD and what you're doing, but I said charities need more support. NGOs need more support because they are the backbone of South Africa. They are there when other people can't be. So education and charities, that's a way to change South Africa, and we could do it in a heartbeat if we all just work towards that focus.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, it's not always easy being optimistic, You got to work at it some days, really, really pump yourself up. And the state of the nation can be quite a complex and a challenging topic. So if we can hear from you, Brent, how can individuals and communities contribute to positive change, and what role does optimism play in this process?
Okay, so optimism is key. We have to be hopeful. And I'm going to go back to Nelson Mandela here because he said great things that we can all just pull from. It's like a chappy rapper. Chappy rappers where they've got all those great things that they say. Every chappy should have all sorts of Nelson Mandela quotes in it because they really do inspire. But he said that he hopes, his wishes were that as a country, that all our decisions would be led with our hopes and not our fears. And I think that as South Africans, we can get caught in a state of flux where we are fearful, and then we tend to think about and do things in a fearful way. When we're optimistic and we have a positive outlook in life and good things are happening around us, so we're able to think like that, then obviously the choices we make are going to be in a hopeful state. And that in itself will already play a process to challenging the complexities of the state of the nation. The other side of it, I think, is that 2024 has been a very interesting year when it's come to the state of the nation. So UJ, they've been doing this project for the last, I think it's about 8 years that they've been involved in it. But they call it the happiness index. And they literally measure the sentiment of the country. And I guess that fits in with the state of the nation and where we are. But they measure the sentiment of the country from a happiness level. And they do that by taking every single online conversation. So whether that's social media, whether that is the newspapers or the magazines, whatever those conversations are, and they measure where we are as a country. Pre-2024, pre-elections, for the past 3 or 4 years, South Africa has been at its lowest sentiment. So we've been possibly impacted by the state of the nation. We've been impacted by all our challenges, and we've been living in a state of fear. After the elections this year, no matter which way we were hoping they would go or where we wanted them to, something interesting has come from that. And in this new GNU that we have with the new state of the nation, South Africa has never been happier from a happiness index point of view. And I think that's really, really good news, because when we as a people are happier, we start to make different decisions. And those different decisions will 100% impact our country in a positive way.
Couldn't agree with you more. And what a pivotal point to actually share a beneficiary story from Cotlands. At Cotlands, we tangibly see the role, and it's exciting to tangibly see the role we play in the development of children. This is really, really quite heartwarming. And so I'd like us to take a look at one of these experiences that we are going to now share with you.
Story of impact. Temba's picture-perfect storytelling. Temba, a lively 4-year-old, has been attending Cotlands playgroup for 2 years. One of his favorite moments during the day is story time. He loves listening to the stories, eagerly soaking up every word. But one day, Temba decided to take things a step further. During language time, after a story had been read and explained, Temba announced that he would do the storytelling for the group. With a smile, he admitted that he couldn't read the words in the book, but that didn't stop him. Instead, Temba read the pictures, recalling the details from the previous day's story. His friends were captivated as he narrated the tale with enthusiasm and precision, bringing the images to life. Temba's creative approach to storytelling highlights his growing confidence and cognitive development. His ability to connect visual cues with spoken language is a wonderful example of how Cotlands play-based learning nurtures children's imagination and communication skills. Through Temba's storytelling, we see the power of early childhood education in fostering not only learning but also a love for language and creativity.
So there we go. That was our work in action, and it just gives us such goosebumpies all over, goosies all over. And this is daily the walk of a Cotlander, which is really, really, truly heartwarming. Brent, you've been a vocal advocate for finding happiness in just small everyday moments, not the big stories, but small everyday moments. And can you share a personal example of a small joy that brought happiness to your life recently?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm very upset with you that you showed that video, because now I've got a little lump in my throat, so it's difficult for me to talk. The work that you do is so absolutely incredible and so vitally important in our country. I mentioned earlier on being school ready is going to be a lifeline for kids. It's going to change a lot of their trajectories in this world. And you know, we get to tell stories about kids on a daily basis, about the incredible stuff that's happening for them or happening to them. A small joy, and it wasn't recent, but it's something that I keep leaning back to, was about a JMPD officer that was helping kids cross a road last year. It was the first day on his job. And I do take this personally, because all my stories are personal that we write at Good Things Guy. But it was his first day. He just finished training, and it was his first day on the job. And he was helping. His task for that day was to help kids cross a very big, littles, cross a very busy intersection in the heart of the Johannesburg CBD. And he noticed that quite a lot of the kids didn't have great school shoes. Their school shoes weren't in. We tell these stories every year about how school shoes are not a priority when you don't have food to put on the table. So there's a lot of great organizations who raise money to get these kids school shoes. But this one kid in particular just tugged on this JMPD officer's heartstrings, and he saw that the shoes were really in a terrible state, and he stopped across the road at a little store, and he actually bought the kid new school shoes, because he just thought, you know, I really want to make a difference in this kid's life, and a new pair of shoes will give them the great step into education for themselves. It gives them great confidence. And we got hold of the story. It got sent to us, and we got to interview the JMPD officer and ask him why he did that. Like, why would you use your own money? It's your first day on the job. It's your first month on the job. Like, and he just said, because I understand what it feels like as a kid to have broken school shoes. And I understand what a new pair of school shoes could do for me. So it must be able to do that for them. And I just think that's such an important message, right? If we can make a difference, if we can help, that can bring joy into our lives. And then going back to storytelling, we tell that story and it can bring joy into others. I still have a lump in my throat from your video. I can't do this.
Yeah, it's really heartwarming, isn't it? It really just tugs at your heartstrings. And, you know, we are often looking at how we can make a positive difference, and they exist in the little moments, don't they? I mean, just listening to the story that you shared, it does. You don't have to be involved in big changes, but little changes add up to big changes at the end of it. So, in the pursuit of a better me in the new year, we all have these resolutions, but in that pursuit, what advice do you have, Brent, for individuals looking to make a positive impact in their communities and even beyond?
So in reality, everybody that I'm speaking to here on this call is already doing so much to do good. I feel like I'm speaking to the converted. But if there's any messages that maybe I could give to you to pass on to others who might ask you that question, how to do good, how to give back, how to create change in our communities, my advice is to do it. There are 8 billion people in the world right now. And I have this belief that at any given point, there's at least 10,000 people walking around this planet having a very similar thought to you. And that similar thought could be, I don't know, my community here looks a little bit dirty. Perhaps I need to do something to try and make it a little bit cleaner. And the difference between you and the person who started Cotlands is that they did it. They got up and they did it. They decided to make that difference. And I think often many of us will have a lot of great ideas about creating change, about being better, whether that's in our communities or in our relationships or even in business or in charities. We want to be better, but do we actually action it? And I think that's the word there, is that we need to put into practice what we're thinking. And sometimes it won't work. Sometimes we'll get it wrong. Sometimes we'll come up with an idea and it might not clean up the whole neighborhood. But imagine it just cleaned up your street. Like that's how we just start, right? Is just by starting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a good point to have our next discussion point, Umuntu, ungumuntu, gabantu. I am because you are. And that's the essence of Ubuntu. The concept is deeply rooted in South African culture, as many of us are aware. And how can embracing the philosophy of Ubuntu contribute, Brent, to a more connected and compassionate society?
I get to speak to a lot of people from around the world. I'm sure we all do have that opportunity. We're a global world, thanks to the internet and all sorts, and also our families living in all different parts of the world. And something that has become a beautiful narrative that we can own and hold in our hearts is how incredible the people in South Africa are, how kind we are, how we are able to be connected to each other, where in other countries it's quite difficult. Bless you. I think your mic is on. So that's me being kind, you see, giving a bit of kindness. So over the weekend, I did a keynote for a big corporate. It was out. I had to drive quite far. I was there on a Saturday, and a lady came up to me to tell me about something that she'd instituted to her children when they were very young. On their way to work in the morning, she would say to them, she would drop them off at school, but on her way to work in the morning, she would remind her kids about what one good deed would they do today. You got to go do that good deed. You got to do the good something. You got to go out into the world. It doesn't have to be big. It can be something small. It can be being nice to someone who looks a little bit down today, smiling at someone. What good deed are you going to do today? And at the dinner table, that every evening, they would go around the table and talk about the one good deed that they had done. And obviously the kids, theirs was more childlike, whereas because the parents had instituted this into their family, they were doing pretty big stuff that they were being kind about. Fast forward to now where their kids are adults. I think she said her kids are in their early 20s and they're studying overseas. Her kids still tell her about the one good deed they've done every single day. But here's the thing. It's a lot more difficult to do it in Europe and the UK. And that was just two examples. She told me that her son one day gave up his seat on the tube for a woman. And he said, you can sit here, ma'am. And the lady said to him, I don't need it. Do I look like I need the chair? I don't need the chair. There's nothing wrong with me. And I think that comes back to the heart of South Africa, the Ubuntu that we have. We're ingrainedly kind. We are so compassionate and connected to each other that we already start on a different footing. And should we for a moment falter and forget that, I think that being kinder, it just raises that Ubuntu far further than what is already ingrained in us. And by being kinder to each other, that that is how we can embrace that philosophy, and that is how we can grow that philosophy. And hopefully with like that story that I just shared, those kids can take that South African Ubuntu and share it with the rest of the world, because that's how we make the world a better place, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Bless you again to the person that sneezed. And I thought that was quite profound, because in some cultures, Brent, it is believed that if you are speaking and someone sneezes, it's a verification that you're speaking the truth.
Whoa, how is that? Thank you very much for that.
So your truth index just shot out the roof in terms of verifications. It's like great stuff there, right there, Brent. So, I know you've witnessed numerous acts of kindness. You even shared the one with the JMPD officer, and through Good Things, guys, there must be just so many of these heartwarming stories. But is there anyone that just particularly stands out for you and resonates with you, Brent?
So another difficult question. So in the last decade, obviously when Good Things got started, we were telling very few good news stories every day, but that number's risen exponentially. We last year, I think the team and I collectively reported on and wrote over 4,000 stories that had come out just in 1 year of good news, which is like just insane that there's so much good news happening, but it's really there, and there really is. For me, I think a story that goes back to the beginning of the year, and one that ties into kindness, and also the fact that today is Suicide Awareness nationally, sort of the Help Day. It goes back to a lady at the beginning of the year. Her name is Natasha. She shared a story that happened to her 4 years ago, and she was only able and confident enough to share that story at the beginning of this year. So it was around about February, March. She wrote on her social media about a day 4 years ago when she caught an Uber. She's from PE, and she caught that Uber, and she climbed into the Uber, and the Uber driver asked her, "How are you?" And she responded saying, "I'm fine." So we take a step back. There was research that was done that said, as average human beings, we say, "I'm fine" 14 times a week. And not just randomly. We don't walk past the mirror and go, "I'm fine." It's when someone asks you, "How are you?" your knee-jerk reaction is, "I'm fine." The reality that also came out of that study is that only 1 in 4 people mean it, which means that many people on this call right now are not fine. And should they be asked if they're fine, they're going to knee-jerk react and go, "I'm fine." Natasha shared her story because she said that day she wasn't fine, and Bart asked her twice. So he said to her, "Ma'am, how are you?" And she just broke down and started crying, and he stopped the car. And if a woman cries in front of a man, we don't know what to do. It's a strange thing. So he stopped the car, got out, opened the car door, and gave her the biggest hug. And when she rewrote that story onto her social media, she said that question from a stranger, that kindness, that really meaning the question, saved her life, because she was on her way to go do something quite awful. And she reshared that story at the beginning of the year. Social media is an incredible tool to connect. It's taken the 6 degrees of separation and turned it into 1. And Bart was tagged in the story. He saw the story, and he uploaded a video after that going, every day for the last 4 years that I drive past that spot where I picked up Natasha, I've just prayed that she's still okay. And I think that's a story that is so incredibly important and really resonated me with this whole year. It's tough for everybody out there. We're all going through many, many challenges in our lives. And I think if we can lead with kindness, if we can ask people, "How are you?" and really mean it, we can bring that Ubuntu to the fore. We can bring that kindness to the fore, and we can make people's journeys easier in this life.
Well, that really tugged at the heartstrings there, Brent. I know when I'm asked and, I say I'm fine, I'll say, but that's just an academic response. And I know one of my friends now has this comeback, and she says, "Are you fine?" And I'll say, "Yes, I'm fine." And she says, "Is that because you've been sandpapered, or are you really fine?" So thank you. I think that, we underestimate what just kindness can do, don't we? And so as we really navigate through the uncertainties, and especially back to the education sector for a moment, we have results that are just not really promising sometimes. And if we particularly look at the 2021 progress in the International Reading Literacy Study as an example, many of us are familiar with this report in the publication, where it says 80% of our grade 4 learners in South Africa are unable to read for meaning in any language. So what strategies could you possibly suggest, Brent, to maintain a sense of hope for the future, particularly when you look at scenarios such as these?
Look, I think the work that you're already doing speaks for itself. And I think that is hopeful within itself. When we're able to give these kids the opportunity to get the early childhood development skills at that stage of their life, so that they can go into school being school ready, being able to read, being able to write, that gives these kids an advantage to really transform their lives. Unfortunately, I think that can sometimes feel overwhelming because the need is so great. And there is such a huge portion of our population that are not going to get to these skills. They're not going to get to that point where they're going to be able to be school ready. I think that we cannot underestimate the level of just one, changing just one life, and the impact that one life will have on future lives to come. It's going to take time. We're going to have to embrace the fact that you can't get to everybody, but the people the kids that you can get to, they will really it'll reverberate into other parts of other lives. And I think that is hopeful, to know that you're planting seeds today to have massive trees tomorrow. It's important. You can't lose sight of the fact that you're making a difference. And even if the reports don't look as great as what you want them to be, you are making headway in a space that should you not be there, would be far worse. It would be far more terrible. So it's that. I think it's the starfish story is just one starfish at a time. You just gotta change one life at a time, and that will implicate so many more lives in the future, and that's hopeful.
It really is, touch one, touch all, right? And even beyond the education space, I suppose we're helping the children break out of the intergenerational poverty cycle as well. So I think it's truly remarkable. Yeah, one little life at a time. We find ourselves trying to constantly keep up with the move of the world. And I know, without giving my age away, I've been referred to by my sons as a techno immigrant, and I'm not a techno native, So in this fast-paced digital age, Brent, we have how can individuals strike a balance, and a balance between staying informed about important issues, but also avoiding the detrimental effects of information overload? How do we strike that sort of balance?
It's such a tricky question. So there was, I don't know which thought leader said it, but they believe that our brains have inherently changed, where we are able to consume, and it's not a belief, it's most probably true, where we're able to consume information faster than any generations that came before us. When we're scrolling, they call it doom scrolling. When you take your phone and you do that thing with your thumb, it's doom scrolling. And we're able to consume information, I think, a decade ago, it was like our attention span was 6 or 7 seconds. It's now something silly like 2 seconds, where we're taking in that information and sort of reading what means something to us and forgetting about. It's difficult. It's a very tricky question. I think the reality for me, and the way that I keep my sanity and remain quite balanced, is to slow down, to learn to slow down. You don't have to consume everything that's coming your way. I still, every Sunday, get the Sunday paper and sit with a cup of coffee. I saw your eyes. You're like, what? Marcel's like, what? That's insane. I sit on a Sunday with a cup of coffee and I catch up on what the news was for the past week, because that's a slow moment. I like to, as well, if there's an article that piques my interest, all different versions of that article from different authors, so I can get an idea from different angles. I think it's only going to get noisier. I think that it's not going to get quieter when it comes to the newscape or how we're getting our information. If we look at some of the, if you keep the news on your TV like I do in my study, the strap lines that come at you fast and heavy, where you see those things it just gets noisier and noisier. So I think my advice is to slow down, to learn to slow down, to learn to take moments to take it in. And if you're interested in a subject, don't just read the headline. Really dig deep and get to know the story. And then the other side there, you mentioned balance. I think balance is really, really important. And I'm not, I would love you to come to Good Things Guy, but I'm not selling my own brand here. That's not why I joined you today. There are various places in South Africa and the world where you can get a balanced narrative of the world. I was invited to a conference at the beginning of the year, or the middle of the year. I lose track of time. I don't even know what month we're in. The middle of the year, I got invited to a conference in Germany for DW, which is like a CNN in Europe. And I was on panel discussions to speak about the future of journalism. And I didn't quite understand why I was there at first, until I realized that Good Things Guy has done something that publications are only starting to do now. And it's called constructive journalism. So this is how it goes. Tell the story, even if it's bad, tell the story, and then speak about the people that are helping, because that's a way to bring hope into the story, and then leave the reader with a way that they can help. And that's constructive journalism. And I think when we start to see more of that, it'll give us more of a balance as well. But that's my final point. Find balance. So slow down, take it easy. If something piques your interest, really get invested and read different versions of it. And the final one is find balance in the information space. Find a reprieve, find a breather, find something that doesn't make you feel fearful, and it brings you a little bit of hope as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to report, Brent, that I don't doom scroll. I groom scroll, because this is the finger I use to put my hair right. So I guess it's called probably groom scroll, but yeah, definitely not the doom scroll.
Irene, I just want to pause you there, because I don't want you to get upset if you see me on stage or on TV or on radio and using your new term. I think groom scroll is brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and you got to do the hair thing when you do that, because that's the groom. Yes, there we go. Brilliant. So keeping a smile on your dial is not always easy, Brent. You seem to get it right. And, let's, before we round off today, I want us to, let's chat a little bit, or just for a second, on happiness. You spoke about happiness index. Goodness gracious, that's a conversation for another day. But you seem like a really happy guy. What advice do you have for us to stay on the happiness track, so to say?
Fill your cup. It's the easiest and the only way that I can tell you to do what's good for you, and do it so that you are able to then give of yourself to each other. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And whatever that is, in advertising spaces, in agencies, they call it taking a duvet day. You can call in, I think, like each person in a creative environment in an agency space has got like 3 duvet days a year, or whatever the number is. And you can literally call into your agency and tell them, I'm not coming to work today, I'm taking a duvet day. You don't have to tell them what it's for. You don't have to tell them what you will be getting up to. But the reality is you can use that time to fill your cup. So take a duvet day if you need to. Play PlayStation all day. Read a book. Sit with your dogs. If you're lucky enough, it's not very sunny in Joburg today, but go walk in the sun. Exercise is so important. My mental health is directly attached to my movement. I say, if I move my body, I move my mind. And if I don't move my body on a daily basis, I know that my happiness level dips. So I sort of understand what to do to fill my cup. I try to do that on a daily basis to maintain that sort of level of happiness. And on days where I'm not feeling 100%, I will call a duvet day, and I will let the world know that I'm not showing up today because I actually just can't. So I think that's vitally important. You need to fill your cup before you can give to others, and do that in any way that you know how, that is not harming yourself. So don't do anything silly, but go out there and just fill your cup with something that makes your heart happy. Spending time with family. I don't know. They say it takes 5 positive interactions to balance out 1 negative one. So if you think of it like that math equation, if you're having a bad day, you're going to have to find more than 5 things to fill that cup again. And whatever those things are, you need to be fully present and you need to embrace them wholeheartedly. And on other days, before I leave with the happiness question, some days not even that is going to work. We have sad days, we have bad days. And I think on days like that, where not even filling your cup is going to help you, you need to hold your sadness with kindness. And you need to just embrace that and be with it as well. For it too shall pass, shan't it?
Mm-hmm. Sure it will. And to be honest, with the way the weather's been wonky, recently, certainly wonky today, I wonder whether I should ask people how many of us do have the duvet and the blanket on the bottom half of our bodies right now as we tuned into this AGM. There we go, Marcel. Marcel, that truth index. There we go. I'm waiting for anyone's going to sneeze. No, nobody's going to sneeze right now. So, Brent, it's just such a marvel how you keep going. Monica, thank you for the honesty. There we go, hands raised. Monica's got a duvet or a blanket. I have one too, to be honest. I'm in Durban. It's not any better. I can tell you this weather is really, really playing tricks with us today.
Wow.
For a while now, actually. Brent, as I was saying, it's just a marvel how you keep going. And, we just listened to you. I know I did, with such awe and inspiration and just marveled at some of the things you said. And so what's next for the good things, guys? I think we all want to know what's next on the cards for you, Brent.
So, you know that I always said that I wanted Good Things Guide to reach the people that it wasn't reaching, because originally it's a website, so you needed data, you needed to be able to log onto a website. I continuously strive to reach the most hopelessness in our country, the people that don't have access to large amounts of money or data, and that's a continuous task for me, to be delivering this good news to people so they can start making the different choices in their own minds. So that's the first thing. Reach the people who need hope. Will be a continuous mission for Good Things Guy. The second is there may be some TV coming in the pipeline. We have been speaking to a couple of production crews to sort of bring some sort of good news. Think of it like as the opposite of carte blanche, maybe on some day of the week, just to bring that feel good factor. I love Carte Blanche. Carte Blanche is a good show. My friends work there, but it was just an example. And the other thing, we launched a book at the end of last year, which is a coffee table book that came out the end of last year, taking those 4,000 stories, choosing 100 for the top 2023. We're doing that again in 2024, as well as me writing my own book, which should be coming out in 2025. That's quite exciting. And then I'm speaking on a global stage. So what I realized, I've done a lot of talks. I do keynotes around the country throughout the year. But what I've realized is there's a great global audience that is not looking for the good news aspect, not looking for my story, but looking for a South African good news story, and to raise our profile as good news to the globe. Is incredibly important for me. So I'm on that mission at the moment, and I leave for Europe on Sunday to do just that. I'm going to go do a couple of talks over the pond. So that's my plan for the future, and I hope that you all follow the journey and sort of see what I get up to.
4,000 to 100.
It was tough. It was tough.
So, Brent, before we say goodbye and thank you and pause our conversation for a moment, earlier we did say we're going to take some comments and some questions that are going to be popped into the chat box. So, Kerry has been kindly fielding this for us. Kerry, over to you. What's our chat box looking like?
Sure, thanks, Irene. So no questions as such, but just lots of really great comments. Thank you, Brent. I think what you've said has really resonated with lots of us. One of them's, wow, legacy is everything. This could be our daily mantra. We've got a here. We've got hands up. Karen actually reminded us, to your point of the chappies, that the Hewlett sugar packets also have Madiba quotes. So that's something nice to also remember. We've got Janet, love watching our Cotlands elves reading to the group of children. So yeah, that was really special, and I think we all really enjoyed that. And Marie Louise, hands up. Yeah, respect. What else have we got? Oh, there we go. Nicole, love the chat. Thank you so much, Brent. So aligned to daily mindfulness. I don't know if anybody's got any other comments or questions.
Yeah, I see Marcel's hand up. Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you so much, Kerry. Marcel?
Brent, thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning. And mine is not a question, but an ask of everybody in the AGM today to please put on your cameras so that we can screenshot this moment of us all being together with an injection of kindness and good news to lead us into the rest of the week. If you don't mind putting on your camera, please humor me. Because we do have social media and I can screenshot this. That's why. Give it a minute. I'll give it a minute. I want more smiling faces. No pressure, guys and ladies.
Okay, may I take a screen grab as well and then post that onto my social media and tag you? So I want everybody to smile. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Oh, wait, one more.
Thanks, everyone. One more.
Hold on. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
1, 2.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Look at all those beautiful faces. Wonderful to see everyone. And Brian and Caroline as well from across the seas joining us. Thank you so much to everyone. And thank you for joining us, Brent. Lots of love. Does that even look like a heart? It looks mildly like a heart.
It does.
Lots and lots of love. And thank you for joining us, Brent. It's been an absolute immense pleasure. It's been an honor and a privilege for me, and everyone's enjoyed it. And we wish you all the very best with all your endeavors, and hope our paths cross again. Please don't be a stranger at Cotlands. Thank you so much. And yeah, maybe before handing over to Nazizwe, maybe just to circle back to you to say adios to our group, and thank you so much, Brent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. I hope you have the most incredible day and a good week. And I want to thank you for all the work that you do. It's so incredibly important and vitally needed in South Africa. I'm over and out. I will chat to you later. Okay, love you. Bye.
Sayonara, goodbye, ciao.